as well as our TV and radio station as well. But let's just get deeper into what's in the dailies. But before that, also allow me to introduce my panelists for this morning. Dr. Duncan Ojwang, thank you. Good morning. Lawyer, political analyst. Beatrice Elachi, Dagoretti North candidate, also former Nairobi County Speaker. Thank you for joining us. And Dismas Mukua, political risk analyst, for joining us. Good morning, Dismas. Thank you for joining us. And I guess we'll begin with what's on the Daily Nation. Okay, I'll begin with the hard copy indeed. That is Gachagua versus Karua. And it's a face-off. One is a dyed in the wool legal purist who made a name in the trenches of the second liberation and the Kibaki years, and the other a hard-nosed administrator who rose through the ranks to build a career in the tempest of the Moi years. Now both want to be Kenya's deputy president, but away from the fact that they're just a heartbeat away from the presidency, in Rigathi versus Karua is a titanic battle for the soul of Mount Kenya. So the questions they're asking, who will strike the right chords? This will be a very interesting day indeed.
Well, thanks a lot for the opportunity. Now, there are many people who are not sure whether the running mate would actually show up for the debates, but I think it's done the nation very well to create time for these debates. But the big question would be tonight is that what is the unique selling proposition for Martha Karua and Rigathi Gachagua? What do they bring to the table? And how does their skill, experience, knowledge in public administration benefit Mura? Because in the room today is about economics. The cost of living is extremely high. We even have a subsidy for our food, but I mean for ugali. Actually, I think it's right to say ugali food in Kenya because they are synonymous. But we've been told that it's going only to last for 4 weeks. So what we expect from these leaders is to give us permanent solutions, because it doesn't make sense to reduce the cost of ugali for only 4 weeks. We'd like it to be permanent. They need to address the structural issue. So it would be very interesting for Gachagua today to come, and when he's making his presentation, to give us his unique selling proposition. That in one word, how do you describe Gachagua? And in one word, how do you describe Karua? Karua has got a very good record, a stellar record on issues of governance and corruption. And even when she was taking a decision to join Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Alliance, she said that she evaluated the two camps and established, and these are her own words, that the two camps have got impurities, but there were fewer impurities within Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Alliance. And it's on that basis that she took the decision. And you know, she's excited the civil society, and a number of civil society activists who are seated on the fence have now moved to the camp. And on the other side, there is Gachagua, who is said to have a big bank balance and who has got a very high capacity for mobilization.
Right.
So tonight, what people want to see or expect to see is their various intellectual infrastructure and capacity. Because should anything happen to their principles, one of these is likely to be the next president of Kenya. But something that I find intriguing is why the media in Kenya liked to refer to Gachagua as a former DO. But you see, former DO was his entry job. I keep on asking myself, why don't they tell us his rise rank when he left office? Why is there this high affinity for former DO? Because if they want to use that as an indication, then they should also tell us that Martha Karua is a former magistrate. So I keep on asking myself, former DO, former magistrate, why aren't we given the full picture? That, for instance, can Martha Karua discuss Kenya's GDP? And can Gachagua discuss Kenya's constitution? Because, you know, Gachagua understands the public administration, and on the other hand, Martha Karua is very good with the constitution. So can they discuss the reverse? Like, for instance, can Martha Karua tonight address the cost of living in Kenya, address the cost of energy, and can Gachagua quote the Kenyan constitution outside section 2A?
So that will be very interesting. Beatrice, what would perhaps be the key highlights for you as we head to the debate later?
Thank you very much, and I think I'll just...
we just apologize. we'll fix your microphone in just a moment, so we're not getting your sound very properly. Dr. Duncan, let me get your reaction on. Oh, we've got any back. Okay, great. So, Beatrice, maybe you can continue.
Okay, thank you. I think it will be very interesting. And first of all, it's important to note that both of them should be very aware that within the Constitution, they are indeed sitting in a seat that at any time, if anything happens, you become the president of this country. Mm-hmm. And that is why Kenyans would want to, I think it's the first time after we've seen what has happened for 10 years, Kenyans have realized it's important to know who is your deputy president, because he can either rock the country or build the country. Right. And so for us, when I look at Martha, who started in her old days when we were young girls, we admired her because being the first lawyer who stood for reforms at that time, went to court with the Chief Justice, and they decided in a pro bono to be a lawyer of now the Right Honorable Raila Odinga. And then moving on as a magistrate, moving on in civil society. I think now I worked under her when she was at the League of Kenya Women Voters, and we were very young paralegals at that time. And then moving on now to come into Parliament, to the Shogo, where again, having been privileged to be among those who used to go and train women on her behalf. And so now when I look at Gachagua, being a DO, moving from a DO, becoming a businessman, working a bit in now the president, as a PA of the president, has learned a lot, I believe, in terms of how government does, and both of them having an opportunity to work in government as a minister, Martha, and then now, each of them have their own good, rich experience. But for me as a woman now, I want to look at Martha now as a woman, and not just a woman, but what substance do you bring on the table so that men don't just think you're a woman, because that is what we go through now. Women, even when you are campaigning, and the men are looking at you. You've said everything, but now they still look at you, and you are supposed to perform much better, beyond better, for you now to reach at the level men will feel, oh yeah, that woman. I mean, and that's the challenge we face as women as we move into these political positions on decision making. But more importantly, I would want to hear the policy of now, how do we ensure women in this country, women who are 80% in the agricultural sector, 80% right now who are taking care of families, are able now to look at the policies that they are bringing on the table and how we move into the next dawn of Kenya.
All right. Nanka, let me get your take as well as we move forward to the next story.
Thank you. Good morning. Yep, it will be a debate worth watching. I anticipate a lot of firework. You know, both of them passed very well in those days to pass and go to University of Nairobi. I think one went for public administration, bachelor's, one did law, became a lawyer. There is similarity, there is difference, because that is where the similarity ends, and the rest, everybody took their different detour. So whether we are going to have continuity or change, whether Gachagua is going to angle and show us that we can expect change in the next government. You know, what Martha did as the Minister of Justice, what he did or didn't do with Githongo Dozia as the Minister of Justice, what she did or didn't do as the Minister of Justice with the Mungiki killing. Those will come up, I anticipate, what she did or didn't do, described by Raila in his book, The Flame of Freedom, as anti-democratic. That is described by his own patron in the book, Flame for Freedom. As my lawyer, what she said, because I talked to her and she represented us as friends of the court, amicus in BBI, and her opening remark was the modern dictator change laws to suit and amass more power in the executive. So she has a lot of explaining to do, the same to Gachagua. And I think at the end of the day, it's going to be a worth debate, because one is walking in as a reformist, and another one is walking in probably as an underdog, as only knowing economy. But it will be a marketplace of ideas. Kenyans will choose which idea they buy today.
All right. So we'll certainly be getting much deeper on that when we come back to the conversation. But still on the Daily Nation, stop playing politics with Unga, the deputy president is telling Uhuru. And of course, this is after the government moved to reduce the cost of the staple from 200 to 100 shillings per 2 kilogram price. And of course, the deputy president, William Ruto, is accusing President Kenyatta of playing politics with maize flour, saying that the government took measures that will lower prices of the Kenyan staple just 20 days to the election. He said, and of course this was in Nairobi, when he was addressing the voters in Nairobi, the head of state had only intervened as a campaign tool because the polls are right around the corner. Do you read mischief in the state's decision to reduce the price of maize flour?
Absolutely, there is mischief. And the Jubilee administration scores highly in this mischief. 5 years ago today, we had the crisis of Unga, and they offered subsidies. Then as soon as the elections were over, they disappeared, and they left the market forces, demand and supply, to inform the price. Now, 4 weeks to an election, the same script is being replayed all over again. And again, they want to influence the voting patterns. Well, it's an economic decision, but one can see that the motive is actually politics. Because why is it only for 4 years? Sorry, for only for 4 weeks. Because 4 weeks from now would have elected the next set of our leaders. And in my view, what the Jubilee administration needs to do, or what they needed to do, or whether it's going to be Azimio or Kenya Kwanza, is to give us a long-term solution. This is as good as giving somebody who is suffering from malaria a Panadol. It's some sort of an ambulance solution. We need long-term solutions. We need to ask ourselves, how come the cost of production in Kenya is extremely high? How come the cost of producing maize in Kenya is higher than all our neighbors? Even the potatoes we consume in Kenya, or not potatoes, the onions and tomatoes come from our neighbors. The chicken, the eggs come from our neighbors. So the big question is, how come the cost of production in Kenya is extremely high? And that is the question that President Kenyatta ought to have answered. That is the question that William Ruto needs to answer today. So as we have this conversation, William Ruto has no moral authority or ground to question this decision, because he participated in making the same decisions 5 years ago. And when you offer this subsidy, one begins to wonder, who is the prime beneficiary of this subsidy? Is it the people who stay in the urban areas who buy this kind of unga? Or is it people deep in the villages who even have no access to these shops where they can actually buy these unga? Or is it a number of selected millers who are going to be given those subsidies? Because you even remember during the last election, the amount set aside for the subsidies all of a sudden ballooned. At the end of the day, they ended up paying, I think it was about 44 billion, I think from 8 billion. So the amount just kept on growing. And in my view, what the voters must do this time round is punish leaders who play around with food security. Because these leaders know that every Kenyan needs to have a meal, most likely ugali, and they know that we've got a weakness, we've got a high appetite for food, and then they play around using subsidies. The same thing which happens in the energy sector, that there is heavy taxation in the energy sector, so, and then all of a sudden you say you are offering as a subsidy, so that we can go down and say that these leaders love Kenya so much, we are paying, they're offering us subsidies, yet they're using our taxes, and that is because of horrible economic administration that Kenyans have been forced to do this. Because a rational person will not understand why cost of production in our neighboring countries is much lower than Kenya.
Okay. Lachi?
I think, first of all, when you look at Kenya now, and I'll tell you, Kenyans are suffering, are really suffering. And I think one of the things that we have not come to sit down, even as leaders, to ask ourselves why all this challenges that we are facing. Yes, one challenges will be because of how we have mismanaged many of our things that we do in this country. But at the same time, it's important also to look at how do we bring back people to appreciate that indeed agriculture is very key, and it's going to save not just Kenya, but many of the countries that we have. For now, I would say, I mean, whether we are leaders, we feel this was a wrong decision, a right decision, for now, Kenyans that we have, it's a right decision for them.
But it's,
because, well, for us here, all of us will talk. We are on a salary. You need to go to Madari, Korokocho, now speak that issue there. Because it is important, I think, for all of us leaders to start understanding our country. We come here, we talk, we cosmetic things. Let me tell you, Kenyans today, even in Nairobi, let me not talk about all over, let me talk about Nairobi. In Nairobi, we have women who were doing just informal jobs. They would come to your house, wash, get something. After COVID, many people changed that. That woman wonders, where do I go? That woman, when you give her whatever you'll give, trust me, you can enter that home and find them with this unga. They will now cook porridge and have in the morning. In the evening, they can now have ugali. Don't ask them with which mboga. And so, first of all, without playing the politics, because already leaders started playing politics long before with Unga, you go, you decide today we are not going to even deal with our farmers. Now let us bring Unga from Mexico. And we forgot, when COVID now came and hit everyone, all over the world, they went into the same challenge. Who is in their farm? Nobody. Who is doing anything? Nobody. Then we come back to our country. You decide the inputs of farming are so expensive, so farmers decide, I cannot just be putting everything in the farm, and what I yield back is, so what I harvest is less than what I have put in. So they decide, let me leave the farm like that. But for now, whether I'm a politician, not a politician, Kenyans, what they are going through, let us not cosmate ourselves because we can afford to get somewhere, have a cup of tea, have lunch, and then you forget. A person somewhere is even wondering, we have school, we've just opened. In 3 weeks, we are closing. In 1 day, 2 days, we are in midterm.
For now,
surely.
you say for now, but you know, it might be quite shocking for Kenyans who will go today morning to the supermarkets and other retail shops and find that the price of maize flour hasn't actually reduced, because first of all, you have the old stock that is still there, and also reports of the fact that apparently that deal is in the works but has not actually been inked between the state and the millers.
Where Kenyans have reached. They enter that supermarket and you have not dropped that unga. You will know.
So this means that it may actually take up to a couple of weeks before Kenyans actually feel the impact of this.
It depends.
For a moment.
It depends.
How come our political leaders make the right economic decisions once every 5 years? Should it not this be a best practice? So I mean,
no, I agree with that. I am not in the game of playing that you can do it because of politics. No. I don't think, in my consciousness, as British Elachi, I would like that game. It's the worst game you can play to every human being. And dignity. One thing I've been saying, dignity of the people of a country is more important than anything. And there's nothing as dignity when your country is able to feed itself. That's the first dignity you give every human being. Food, shelter, dignity. But then at the same time, because we are used to, and that's why I don't want to talk about it, because I know in 5 years, as we were coming to that election, that's the same game we played.
All right.
But for me, I'm just saying, after COVID, I think all of us as leaders, there's something we have not clicked, that there's somewhere we just took Kenyans to another level. And it's not Kenya alone, but I'm just saying, because of our own way of doing and our own administration, the way we run government the first 5 years, then we come not knowing that we will have a pandemic that will come and put the country where we are.
All right.
I think it's important for all of us just to take responsibility. But for me, will assist Kenyans who right now really need food.
Okay.
Yeah.
Duncan.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing that it is coming. Of course, people have to eat beyond election.
Right.
And people have to eat more than ugali because the other cost of living, other commodities are still very high. Of course, I'm seeing the reasonable doubt that even Mokwa was painting, you know, sometimes it's a matter of robbing Paul to pay Peter. You hike the price, you make your money, you plow it in the campaign, then you come up as a savior and say, mere mortals, here is affordable Unga. And you expect them to thank you and clap for you after you have ripped them off. And so that aspect of state capture, even on commodity, basic as ugali.
So you read that this is what, a political ploy?
No, you know, the question should be, why was it 251st place for very long?
You have the state saying that a number of factors that led to the rising cost of
they will even blame
commodities.
You know, I'm a father. I cannot go to my children and say Ukraine war is the reason you are going to bed angry today. And the state and those who are running it should not have guts to simply scapegoat easily without even struggling. To simply say Ukraine, COVID, whatever, all those factors can be mitigated. But finally, I think that, you know, this aspect of auctioning us every 5 years, whether through subsidies, whether through doing things in the last minute for a way to get the votes, and then after that we are done. It is still Kenya, and the people will need food beyond election. So I think it is their duty, it's the state duty, both those who are in government formally and informally,
All right.
those who are in government officially and unofficially, as they campaign to look at Kenyans and not kick this can down, because people will still have to eat after election, check the other commodity, and I think that Kenyans appreciate this, but there is a little bit more that can be done.
All right. Let's just move forward. End of the road for Sonko. So Sonko is still fighting. He's moved to the East African Court of Justice to challenge that particular ruling by the Supreme Court. And of course, that Supreme Court upheld the ouster of Nairobi Governor. That was about 2 years ago. Through its Mombasa County Returning Officer, Swala Ibrahim, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission revoked the clearance certificate it had issued to Sonko last week, citing that particular letter and, of course, attributing it to the Supreme Court. And on June 7th, Ibrahim qualified Sonko for breach of Article 75 of the Constitution, prompting him to challenge the decision. And we know how this story has gone from all the way, the court ruling from the High Court to the Supreme Court, back to the IBC, his revocation. Is this the end of the road for Sonko, politically speaking?
No, it's not the end of the road, because he can actually vote in politicians of his choice, either in Mombasa or wherever he wants to do. He can participate in the voting process. But a basic review of the judgment by the Supreme Court,
right?
And because it's very complicated, they took time to offer a one-page document, I mean, advising journalists and the media on how to cover the story.
Right.
And I've spoken to legal scholars, people who understand the Constitution, and that Dr. Ojwang is around, they can even cement it further. The Supreme Court of Kenya is not subordinate to any other court in the world. When the Supreme Court of Kenya has pronounced itself on any aspect, it's a wrap. So even if you go to the East African Court of Justice, you'll be wasting your time. In any event, you've been told, the Kenyan authorities have been given 45 days. So 45 days will probably be looking at who is joining the cabinet if there is no runoff. Number two, the Supreme Court has done what members of the National Assembly failed to do. because they were told to enact a piece of legislation. They came up with the Leadership and Integrity Act, which was watered down so as to create room for mischief. And the judges indicated that Chapter 6 is not a provision which is a cosmetic, that you just look at it and then you say, okay, there's something around here. In my view, what the Supreme Court has done is something which is acceptable. We need to give them a pat on the back so that our elected leaders start treating Kenyans with respect. If our leaders were treating Kenyans with respect, they will not be offering this kind of subsidies they're doing on oil and on ugali. They would treat us with more respect. That when you've been given a position like Sonko was given, it's not a factor of production. You are supposed to go there and serve the people of Nairobi. So for me, I think this is the end of the road, at least for the next 10 years. But they can participate actively in politics, elect leaders of his choice. And this should be a warning to voters. In the next 20 days as we go to cast our ballots, there are many more Kenyans who are about to make this kind of mistake. When you look at the people who have offered themselves for positions.
In 2017, you had the, you had Martha Karua, who was, vying for the gubernatorial seat in Kirinyaga. She went up to the East African Court of Justice, and she actually got reprieve from there. So isn't this sort of like setting a precedent for Sonko, who is also seeking, that recourse at the court?
Well, she may have gotten some reprieve, but what did this change? I mean, you cannot get when this law will assist us, but a plain reading of the Kenyan Constitution, the Supreme Court of Kenya has got the last word on any dispute in Kenya. You can go to ICC, you can go to Hague, you can go to Arusha, you can go to my home in Mososho. You can dance on top of any mountain. But at the end of the day, when the Supreme Court has pronounced itself, it's a wrap. The only option you may have is requested them to review their own decision. And I think also that is buying time. He's hoping that in the process of reviewing their decision, he'll go back to the High Court and say, wait a minute, the Supreme Court is reviewing that decision, so allow me to run. Right. But by the time you rise to become a judge at the Supreme Court, you understand law, you understand politics, and you understand the mischief associated with it. Right. So there's a very high chance that the Supreme Court, if they accept to review, if they accept that review, they can review it in a minute and offer judgment in a minute. And we must run away because, our elected leaders have perfected the art of using the judicial system to engage in mischief. Like, for instance, there are people who are not qualified to run for particular positions, but they run to the High Court, they get orders, they're called conservatory orders and all these kind of things. So they clash on the law to remain in office. All right. And the voter Mora Wanjiko and Nafula, they must start punishing these people because the CS responsible for Interior, Dr. Matiang'i, indicated that so many people who are suspected to be in wash who want to run for political office. Now, if we vote in an emotional and irrational manner, we are going to have many kind of Sonkos, and then we are going to have many more of NMS replicated across the nation. Okay, let me hear Madam Elachi's sentiments on this whole issue. I know you've worked with Mr. Sonko before. And suffered.
I don't know who suffered.
Did you suffer?
I don't know who suffered.
Don't you recall at some stage our office?
Well, for Sonko, I think there are two things. First of all, Kenyans, do you really want Chapter 6? It's a question Kenyans must answer. The lawyers must answer that question because it's very unfair when you have a clear chapter within your own constitution that can guide a country, that can bring order to a country in terms of governance, in terms of all of us just respecting public office and public resources and how we deal with public office. But because Kenyans, we've decided we are a very litigant country where we want everything, even the one you've read, the lawyers will just change just one word and say, no. Because when I look at the whole thing, and first of all, I don't know what is the application of Sonko now. I don't know whether it is to vie for governor or the removal of his impeachment from Senate first. You see, that I think what he needs to push first is that this impeachment should go away so that it opens doors for not just, if you don't become a governor of Mombasa, you can still work in public office. So I even don't know now what the case is. Is it that he has to vie as governor?
Okay.
Then if that's the case, then it's a case that can come and another case can come in, because somebody can still go and say, no, you were impeached by the Senate. You have not even removed and you want to go on this. So first of all, I think the Supreme Court dealt with one matter. You were impeached by the Senate, and the impeachment stays. So until you go to another court, which I don't know which one, you see, you cannot go to the East African court to talk about your political issues that are embedded within the Constitution. That the Senate will impeach, and when the governor is impeached, you cannot run for office until 10 years are over. So those are some of the things. So for me, I would say this. I think even the lawyers I can see, senior is there. I am wondering, really? Or is it just, you know, one of the things also as lawyers, they should start asking also, as we move on, is that, will I really want to just be paid for the sake of being paid, or will I want to be paid where I know I am within the law and I'm guiding my client within the law?
Okay.
That the law says this. We can go for this, but we can try our best to ensure this happens.
Okay.
But not just for the sake. It doesn't look good.
let's
Especially now when they become very senior.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
because they are role models to many other people.
Is this a race in futility for Sonko?
Unfortunately, I've not read the Supreme Court decision.
Right.
So I have to confess that I might not be intimate with what the court said. I think when Martha went to the East African court, it was after the fact. And it was more, the relief that she received was damages. It will be unimaginable for Sonko to get reprieve from that court to enable her to be in the ballot. And so, you know, East Africa Charter, our treaty, talks of good governance. Of course, is going to present that Kenyans have a choice, sovereignty belongs to the people. Senate impeachment is a political process. Should not be it's not a legal process. But I think they might not have authority or leeway to make him be in the ballot. But I think, you know, we say the beautiful ones are not yet born. We see corruption every other way, every other side. I think 1 week dalliance with Azimio did not wash him clean enough. He's kind of clean, but not squeaky clean. And so he's out for now. But, you know, lawyers, this is a new constitution. And so I don't think it is robbery for it to be tested, for us to really know what Chapter 6 means, rather than just sit there and say we know. Because now we are clearer on different ways of what that Chapter 6 means and what it does not mean. So this litigation form very good jurisprudence. They shape our law and they test our resilience. After all, it's not the lawyers' cases. It is the non-lawyers' cases. So it will be unfair to blame lawyers for taking Morai and Wanjiku's cases, and then, because it's not, well, they don't generate those cases.
You know, it would perhaps, you're saying, crushing hopes of Mike Sonko?
No, Sonko, I think, will still be relevant. And it sucks if you are in Sonko's opposite side. Because Sonko, after the road to governor is closed, I think, he will review and say, now my many supporters, this is the next governor. That is a lot of power. My many supporters, this could be the next president. And that is a lot of power. Well, why are Kenyans lax about Chapter 6? Because of hypocrisy. We say one thing,
you are unclean when you are on one side, but you are clean when you are on the other side. And Kenyans learn hypocrisy. If there is anything that Jesus did not want, is hypocrisy. He will deal with sin and sinners. But hypocrisy. And that hypocrisy is where we are seeing state capture and every other looter being endorsed for second term, and the other side who say, no, I'm raising reasonable doubt to NMS. I'm saying that leave Nairobi and let Nairobi run is out of it. I think I support what Supreme Court said. Chapter 6 must not be aesthetic, must not be important. It was actually one of the few chapters Kenyans said a lot of hope. Devolution and chapter 6. Okay. Let it bite.
All right. So, okay, so we'll take a very short break here on AM Live. Remember, you can continue engaging us. The hashtag we're using is AM Live NTV at NTV Kenya at Zainab Ismail. We'll be sampling some of those views. We'll be coming back and delving much deeper into some of these issues, and we'll just also just brush quickly on some of the other newspapers we haven't touched on the other side of the break. Stay with us.
To get Wewe Peke by Bide the Vocalist, dial star 812 star 802 hash. Skiza na Nation.
Generation inakuja ni sisi tunalidi nchi.
Justina Wangui wa Mae, Roots Party of Kenya.
Ukiitwa deputy itika.
Martha Wangari Karua, Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Coalition Party.
Tungetaka tuseme Wakenya wameamua.
Rigathi Gachagua, UDA.
We are coming to bring in change.
Ruth Wambui Musheru, Agano Party. Battle of the Deputies. The Deputy Presidential Debate live on the 19th July 2022, 5 p.m. to 9 p.m.
At each stage of your business cycle, there are different opportunities and challenges. Has your business evolved and made strides to adapt and be the best in your field? Enter the 2022 Top 100 Mid-Sized Companies Survey and showcase how you have driven success at every stage of your business. Submit your entry at www.eastafricatop100.com. Survey closes on 9th September 2022. Top 100 SMEs. Be seated among the great.
Life is for the living. Make sure you live it well. Life is for the living, and making sure that those who we love will be well taken care of.
What is wrong with that? How many men?
All right, thank you for staying with us. This is AM Live NTV. And look, we're now getting much deeper into this conversation that has suddenly touched the hearts of many Kenyans, and it is indeed in the soul of the country, which is the rising cost of living, specifically on essential goods. Now, yesterday we touched just briefly as we took a look, we looked at the newspapers, and of course, just very briefly, the maize flour is actually Kenya's staple and is suddenly one of the most pocket pinching for Kenyans, especially in lower income households. From 230 shillings, the government says it is reducing that cost to 100 shillings for a 2-kilogram packet of maize flour. Now, the Ministry of Agriculture said that it has inked a deal with the millers to bring down the cost of flour. Still, that is a bit, it's quite opaque there. Whether that deal has actually been inked, we'll need to get more information on that. But I'll begin with you, Dismas, once again. I know you spoke about this a little bit, but much deeper. You talked about in the run-up to the 2017 election, we saw almost the exact same thing happening. Prices capped at about 90 shillings a packet for a 2-kilogram packet, retailing at 142 shillings, I believe, back then. But then this brings out the questions of, you know, what we call, and I'll quote, you know, politics of Unga, you know. Are we seeing this as just a political rhetoric?
It seems to be the case. You know, when the president is sworn into office, I recall I watched our President Kenyatta twice. He swore to protect lives and property. Now, when you're talking about lives, one of the key anchors is food security. So one of the principal responsibilities or obligations of the President of the Republic of Kenya, indeed any head of state anywhere, is to ensure that the country attains food security. And food security means that food must be available, number one, and the food must be affordable. Can you say the Jubilee administration has failed to protect Kenyans on this particular issue? I mean, when you're talking about food security, I would say they've failed, and they've failed with a lot of success. If you review the government statistics, their own statistics, when President Kenyatta left office, sorry, President Kibaki left office, poverty rates were around 38%. It's now gone to 64%. And this is multidimensional poverty, meaning that they suffer from food insecurity, they suffer from healthcare insecurity, and housing insecurity. Now, if you're the President of the Republic of Kenya, and 64% of the population has got a food crisis, has got a housing crisis, has got a healthcare crisis, then how would you describe yourself? Because one of the key success factors of any leadership, number one, is food security. And that's why it's unacceptable for anybody to play politics with food. Because, you know, we are talking about people who have woken up this morning. Right. They're not going to have breakfast as we know it. They're probably going to have black tea, not because they've got a medical condition, but because they don't have capacity to have, you know, omelets, to have bread and all these kind of things. They don't know what they're going to have for lunch, and they don't know what they're going to have for supper. Now, as a parent, because of the poor economic situation, how do you explain to your kids or to your family members that you have no capacity to buy them, I mean, to give them 3 square meals a day? So in my view, we must start asking those deep questions, and we must ask all the candidates who are running for office their long-term solution. Because this short-term solution for 4 weeks, in as much as we appreciate it, because at least now we are guaranteed of a meal for the next 4 weeks, but what happens after 4 weeks? We need long-term solutions. And in my view, the definition of a good leader is one who identifies the priorities of their nation. National interest, public interest, and then you assign resources, that is human capital and financial capital, to achieve the objectives. How come right now you're able to make a packet go for 100 shillings, 2 kilograms? Why can't you make it permanent? This reduction of 130, what is the cost component? And in my view, when the minister says that they've now inked a contract with the millers and other stakeholders, why can't they make it public so that we know who are these stakeholders? Who was a part of this conversation? Who is going to be a beneficiary? If you're going to give a subsidy, who is going to be a beneficiary? And then, why is the cost of food production in Kenya much higher compared to our neighbors? Right. Now, if Uganda has got a surplus of maize, Tanzania has got a surplus of maize, why can't we just open up our Kenyan market so that we get the cheap food coming from our neighbors? But really, then in my view, the core issue, and I say this because I come from a farming community, is to address the cost of production. That is the elephant in the room. And we'll certainly be trying to hear what the presidential running mates will be saying about that. Elachi, I mean,
we're looking at a situation where the country is already straining economically. Where is this money coming from?
Well, at the moment, I would say, you know, as a government, definitely there are measures you always put in place and mechanisms. It's unfortunate, yeah, that we find the country has to really strain, and then it's when you bring in the economic stimulus that you think can mitigate a situation when it's like this. I would say in Uganda, I was there the other day in a wedding, Unga in Uganda is 226 Kenya shillings a packet. And so I think in Tanzania, if you're buying a 90 kg, it's 4,067 Kenya shillings, but you translate it to the amount. So I would say equally, I don't think there's any country right now that is sitting pretty. Even where we thought food will come, it's they have their own crisis, because when you look at now fuel is very high. Kenya is now cheaper than these other countries. And I would say in Kenya, if we really wanted just to ensure we have food security, when we came into the dispensation of the new constitution, I remember when we were in Senate, we sat down with Nairobi University and did a very good research of food security. And we realized where we have had our basket of flour and everything, which is in the upper side of Kenya, in the western side of Kenya, which is Kitale and all that. If we don't look at other areas that can come and support, we are going to have a crisis. At that time, I did the food security bill, presented this bill, but because it was very political, by the time it goes into the National Assembly, it stayed there until we had to now just go on Sindai. But then, at that time, what was the university trying to address was one, we look at the country based on the counties and get to now map out. This is a county that can be very good in food security, maize of this class. And so how do you bring in that surplus so that you support where right now farmers who are going through soil destruction because of fertilizers that are not right and all that. And then how do you bring in another subsidy that Kenyans cannot just look at ugali, but have something else, maybe matoke from Kisime. And it was a very well planned, because matoke can also survive anywhere in the country. It can grow. I mean, Jekwat can take you through a good process, and it can grow anywhere.
But how sustainable would that be?
It will be sustainable. Of course it will be. That's why you find you can, it's a crop that is resistant to drought, to everything. It can survive and it will support. But then now when you come to this politics, the politics of food, I mean, and that's why for me, I don't need to support anyone on this one. It is wrong. It's wrong.
But does it make any difference, for example, those in the rural areas perhaps, would it make any difference for them? Because for them, it is getting that maize and going to a posho mill perhaps, you know, Kisiagi, and getting their maize flour. Is this sort of like a targeted approach to certain areas in this country?
You see right now, even that posho mill, that unga you are saying, that's why I'm saying it's good to go first into the country, understand where we are. We are in a crisis. We don't have even the maize to take to that posho mill. We don't have. In fact, I was asking the ministry, so when you decide to send money to someone in a rural area in Turkana to go and buy food, which food? There's no food. That's why that person, he did not tell you he didn't have, he has money, but he's unable to get the real food. And that's why government has to supply that food. And so even right now, when you talk of posho mill, if posho mill was there, definitely in Kawangware right now, we would be having the maize for people to just go in the posho mill and get unga. But it's not there. It is a crisis where a country, and I agree with Didmas, that we must have a solution. We can't just say, yes, it's unga now. We have the millers with the unga, and maybe they will come and tell us we have only this. While we say that Kenyans consume 1 million bags, I mean, The unga itself, the maize itself, is not in the country now.
Okay.
Let me just quickly buttress that
Yes.
point. Food security means availability of the food and
Affordability.
affordability of the food.
Yeah.
And then again, she's raised an anthropological issue that I say you provide matoke and tell people to start taking matoke on Dizi instead of ugali. I come from Kisi.
No,
and if you offer,
you substitute.
yeah, but I'm just
both
trying
of them to be there.
I'm trying to buttress the point. Where I come from, if you offer somebody matoke for lunch or for supper, they will not consider that to be a meal.
Yeah, in fact, I was thinking, you know, in some areas, you would tell someone, you know, I'm having rice, perhaps, for example, for
No,
lunch,
rice,
and
no.
they'll be like, rice is like a snack for me.
Yeah, it's a starter.
Right.
People will think
starter.
you're very mean. You will
That's
be
why I went to
declared-
matoke. It's much better. You can do it and it becomes like an ugali. But right now, in some regions, they don't. That is for taking tea in the morning.
But can you just imagine somebody who does lumbering, a plumber, a mason, somebody who works in industrial area,
Needs
and then
ugali.
you're offering them rice, a small portion of rice, and telling them you've had a good day at work.
It's okay.
Here is rice. They'll give you a bit.
But of
Right.
late, rice has been now cheaper than the ugali.
Yeah.
And so you find many people had to now just resort, especially in Nairobi. And that's why even when you're talking of food security, you need to ask yourself, how does a Nairobian survive? Because there's no land, isn't it? But you are waiting food to come in for you to survive.
right.
How will a Nairobian survive to ensure food security does not become an issue in terms of their households?
All right.
It is very critical.
Dr. Ojwang.
Yeah, at the end of the day, the handshake duel need to stop playing ping pong with Kenyans' lives. I hope that Unga do not come with a campaign message,
What do you mean by a campaign
a
message?
poster, a picture of a project candidate, or similar things. I hope they don't do that. You know, we have a principle in law that do not treat people as a means to an end, but an end by itself. So you don't feed me to fatten me so that you want my vote. I'm not a pig. You feed me because it is the right thing to do. And the government need to know that. That in fact, you know, we have talked of Antoinette's situation who said if there is no bread, eat cake. Even if you bring banana today, the state capture will make that banana unaffordable. Because the game is put it high, get all the money you can, lower it, look like Messiah, 3 weeks to election. Hopefully Kenyans have amnesia. They will worship you until they wake up and find you in the State House and then realize, boy, we made a mistake.
But I think what Mheshimiwa Elachi was saying earlier on was it doesn't really matter that we're in an election season right now, that all that matters is, okay, so the government is able to now subsidize that maize flour.
Yeah.
Let's do it now. It doesn't matter, you know, any political leanings.
People must, yeah, no, but you see, it's not Elachi's innovation. I'm talking to the person who is responsible for securing our food security. It is not Mokua who procure food and who runs the country. And so I think it will be shooting from the hip when we start talking at each other. We are all victims. And that is one thing that we must be conscious about. And so, and that is the same thing. So when you talk of people who cannot afford, sometimes use words like hustlers. These are people, this is not an offensive word. The Mamamboga and the hustlers are people, and I hope we don't have hustler anxiety. These are people who cannot afford meals, and they are being used as a means to an end. And then, to me, what is important, I expect Kenyans to gravitate back to the manifestos, not the manifesto we are writing now with these prices, but to which path and which manifesto have a good picture on agriculture, have a good picture on affordability of food, and have a good picture of starting on enhancing the daily people's life. You see the problem with this country, we have Africa rising, we have Kenya rising, In fact, the GDP might as well be very high. There was economic index showing that we are growing. But the question is, growing for who? It is mega project, it's for a few people, and the rest of Kenyans who are left behind are left to pick the crumbs and whatever. And that is why this election will be about whoever calls themselves the hustler and whatever, and it's about the people's interest. Food is a matter of choice and taste. And it must respect my dignity. So affordability, yes, quality, and to my taste. So if I want to eat ugali for breakfast, I should be able to eat ugali for breakfast. I should not be told, you know, why don't you try this? Because it's about my dignity, as Elachi put it very well. And that dignity is about choice. Human rights is about choice and capacity. Build my capacity that if I want to eat ugali 4 times a day, I can eat. Don't come and say, why don't you eat this and instead of this? That is part of now domination.
And I mean, it would be interesting that after 4 weeks, perhaps Kenyans would end up finding themselves in the same place, just a few days after the 9th August polls.
Which is why right now we've got this unique and golden opportunity for us to punish, using the ballots, persons who do not respect Kenyans. You know, recently, or rather, the last couple of days, you've seen our political leaders expressing anger and fury. For others, is righteous fury. I mean, you saw William Ruto lose his cool. You saw Martha Karua lose her cool. You saw Raila lose her cool, which is a very good thing. But in a solid leadership, such kind of leaders are not supposed to lose their cool in public. I remember for President Moi, you would not even read his face. I mean, he was composed, a very solid leader. But now the person who is supposed to lose their cool and anger and exercise their righteous fury is the voter on the voting day. They must punish leaders who take Kenyans for granted. They must punish leaders who come up with policies, not because they serve morale, but because they serve their selfish interest. Now, you've seen Dr. Juang has acquired a new vocabulary called state capture, and he's kept on repeating it. This show, he's repeated it about 50 times. Oh, wow. And then he's spoken about the hustler. But now we must start questioning that when you are elected into office, the French say, what's your raison d'etre? Why are you in office? You are in office to secure lives and property. It's in the Constitution. How can you tell people that you are a success if the basics, food security, you don't achieve it? You know, in other countries, you go like Singapore and South Korea, some of these countries have achieved about 98% housing security. In other countries, if somebody sleeps on an empty stomach, it becomes a national crisis. But in Kenya, what happens when people are sleeping on an empty stomach? You give them food. And just to align with what Dr. Jung has indicated, I hope that food which is coming, it will not be branded with either Azimio or Kenya Kwanza. That on the list, it will just have the Kenyan coat of arms.
Wouldn't that be too obvious that then this is suddenly a
political... You can't underrate what these people can do.
Kenyan leaders have got a capacity for mischief, and they've got capacity for surprises. On the list, let's say there is a donation from the Kenyan government, but not with any accompanying message.
But then that isn't relief.
And this government, and this food must not be given out at political rallies. As let it be given through the chiefs, not at political rallies. You know, it's very demeaning when you see a 78-year-old lady in a queue, you know, forming a queue from CBD to Westlands to Kawangware, and then they are given food. They're given 2 packets, you know, branded with a political party. You know, I even see politicians right now, when they're campaigning, they ask women, people to come under the hot sun. In some places, it's very hot or it's very cold, and the people sit for hours on end waiting for politicians who've been in office for 10 years, for 15 years, for 20 years, to come and then give them food, instead of taking their responsibility at the National Assembly or Senate, creating an environment for Kenyans to have opportunities. You know, what we are supposed to do as a leader, as a leader, make sure that your citizens have got choice. That is all Kenyans are asking for. do not limit our choices. As Dr. Jong has indicated, if somebody wants to have an omelette for breakfast, allow the person to have an omelette. Don't tell him that now take maybe beans or soya, whatever it is. You know, the true definition of a leader is creating opportunities for your populace, so that we do whatever we want to do, provided it's within the law. And I'm really hoping that our voters, who are largely emotional and irrational, this time round will vote with their selfish interest in mind. There's no use electing somebody to the National Assembly today, and for 4.5 years, all they're doing is taking decisions which serve their selfish interest. Then the last 5 months, they come to the village with truckloads of food. They mesmerize you, and you know most of them are populist politicians. So they come with all manner of choppers. They come with these branded SUVs. They come with T-shirts. They bamboozle you. You give them the vote, and then you see them back again after 4.5 years. I think the Kenyan voter must become very wise and punish impunity, punish mediocrity, punish corruption, and reward meritocracy. You'd remember what Omalo Kijana said, that if we don't do this thing, for the next 10 years, we are going to be wallowing in a miasma of misery again. And for some reason, I don't know why most voters get mesmerized by politicians. And I don't want to name any on this table, but I know they've got capacity of selling, like now it's very cold. Some of these politicians this morning will be selling ice cream to voters. It's very cold, but they're still selling ice cream. And I really wonder, how come during elections, we lose our capacity for reasoning, we lose our capacity for logic, and we embrace tribal leaders who've been beating us every day. There's something I've been talking about times above number, about Stockholm Syndrome, that Kenyans are falling in love with their captors, people who mismanage CDF, people who mismanage county funds, people who mismanage national funds, and then what happens on voting day? Wake up early in the morning, cast our ballot in their favor, and then we go back and say Hail Mary.
All right. Madam Beatrice, I mean, you know, you're a political player. That's a serious indictment on, you know, politicians in this country, that they do not care for the common mwananchi. And after every 4.5 or so years, they're back with the same promises over and over again, enticing people.
You see, it's very easy to say it here. I'm wondering, when Didymus goes home, you don't have people even come and ask you that I have this challenge.
I do, but you see, for me, I call a spade a spade. Good. Because I'm not running
for
office.
They do. Have you just heard? They do. So they come to his home, and I also know my senior here goes through the same. So I think I will agree that, yes, it's important for us to come up with very serious policies where Kenyans can be able to just know, as a leader, this is my role, and I am supposed to deliver this to ensure my constituents are able to, first of all, get affordable health, food, and all those. The three main key basics that we say as human rights, that these are the basics that any person needs. But at the same time, we have to agree, all of us leaders are the ones who have put our country to where we are today. That we have made our citizens to be at a level where it's very unfortunate. And I will tell you, there's no woman, these are men talking, so they won't care. I will tell you, there's no woman who will allow her child to sleep hungry. And she knows she can walk, go somewhere, and she'll get something. She'll walk, go look for kibarua, and do. She'll do anything for her children to go to school, for her children to have food on the table. And when they don't have, that is a woman, I tell you, and you know that, is in pain. So any man can say, oh, politicians, you line, people will come. And let me tell you, as a woman, I will go anywhere to see my children, that they are going to school and they will not sleep hungry. So let us, first of all, we must ask ourselves, at what level have we made them get to that level? Before we even start saying, oh, they will come, they will line up. It's a politician will open his home to anyone. Let's start from there. Well, you want to hate a politician, hate that politician. But to be very honest, it is only in a politician's home, whether in Nairobi or in the rural, where you'll find, yes, somebody will come and will say, I have a problem of this and this and this. As a politician, whether you want to hate me, my first duty is to see, can I be able to assist? I know it is wrong, but that's the only way at that time. It's a short term where I must be thinking, what's the long term of this? And how can we resolve this?
All right.
For it not to happen again. It's going to take a while.
Okay.
Even now, you cannot come and say Kenyans will wake up and say, this is my leader who has done. If you are a good leader and you have decided, I've done the schools, I ensure everyone has bursary, trust me, citizens will come to you and say, this is a very selfish leader who doesn't open her home. And that is what they'll beat you with. So it's also, it needs a lot of civic education. So anyone who comes and you want to really assist the country for citizens to move to the right level, it will take a while for citizens. And then until also us politicians agree that it is wrong to say things that you know you can't do. I mean, you don't lie to Kenyans. Tell them, I'm able to do these 3 things, and do them. And when they come and ask you the 4th one, you said, when I was talking about, I talked about these 3 things. I knew I'll be able, it is doable, and this is what I have done. Prove to them. Kenyans will respect you for that.
All right.
The challenge that we face is that we promise even what you're not supposed to promise. And you know very well, it's not workable. And then in 4 years, you start now beating around. Oh, this one was for governor to do. He require a national government. I don't know. And
but you must agree, most of our leaders are failing the electorate. They're failing them in terms of all the promises that they make during the campaigns.
But
only 10%, by the way, only 10% managed to implement even some of these
and even
issues.
Those 10%, you go right now, they are still facing the same wrath. Because maybe you are doing the good things, but there are a few things. And by the way, Kenyans don't look at these big things. Oh, trust me. Kenyans look at, first, your behavior.
Okay.
Second, how you treat people. And then you don't need to be this, and then when you enter in politics, you become someone very different. Just remain yourself.
Okay.
You will remain with your citizens and they will respect you.
All right.
Yes.
So I would want us to move on to a different subject, but Dr. Jong, I don't know if you have any remarks to make on, and as we close on this issue of the maize flour.
Yeah, no, the idea that Kenyans, I think Kenyans will... The Constitution took its chances by making Kenyans the sovereign. We shouldn't second guess that choice. And by making them sovereign, it means they assumed that Kenyans are smarter than the politicians and that they can see through their games. I think that the issue should not be this is what a woman's pain is, because if you look at a family has a father, a mother, a child, a youth, even if it's a single family, but it's a family. So we can talk of families and not split hair, because then family will have your agenda there, but it will be broader, it can take care of everybody. And that is, for example, what you'll hear so many times from Gachagua, because he's a family-oriented gentleman. So the idea that we are feeding families and the pain of one member of the family, like this is not funny, stop laughing.
It's very funny. The way you're bringing it, you want to tell me now, he's a man of family with values. So for us women, those who are single women, let me tell you, in this country today, Senior, what men have taken women through, I think it is important to respect that 80% of families today, 80%, they know their mother. And their mothers have struggled. And that's why you have sons nowadays who prefer just being called with their mother's name. So you should be asking yourself as fathers, why would you go decide to bring a family and then run away from that family?
But we also see, Honorable Elachi, that, you know, there are sentiments that even women have taken men through some hard times.
I'm not refusing that, but who brings in a child? Women don't bring children. They biologically, a father brings the child. The moment you bring that human being in this world, take responsibility.
No, my point was, maybe I didn't execute it well.
All right.
But my point was that, within a family, even the Constitution talk of this Constitution is meant for the welfare of individual, family, and the society. Within a family, the girl child is taken care of. The boy child is taken care of. Whether the mother is the head of that household, and I agree that there is a lot of household where the mother is the head of household, but it is still within the family setting. Okay. And so that is why when we provide for the families, and when we talk of families, because everybody comes from a family, and the comfort and the joy and the love and the sharing and the sacrifice within that family, then you find that whoever is now simply talking of an aspect, gender is an aspect of that family. So if Gachagua can take care of families, then he's taking care of both your woman there, and they are taking care of him and the youth and everybody. That is what I'm saying, that the family values then become very important, and the feeding should happen at family, because there is no family where the mother say, you boy child, go out as I feed your sister. Okay. I grew up with sisters, and it is at most sacrifice for each and every member of family. So let us not divide these people.
Okay.
Let me just finish. Traditionally,
very quickly as well.
Traditionally,
take a break. Yeah.
Do you know children can sleep hungry, but the father will eat? Yeah. The mother will make sure, I'm telling you, and everything that is good will go to the father, but the children will eat. And we were children, and we saw. Our mother will always take care of our fathers. So I can see Senior here is just taking me to that route. That, you should remember, we are the fathers. And I want to tell you, yes, but you have let us down.
I think we are spiraling into a completely different conversation now. Let's take a break, but before that, just a quick mention here. Duncan Langat on Twitter says, most communities in Kenya, including my community, value ugali so much that if they eat anything else for supper, they will say, tulilala na njaa. You also have Alex Kipsoing say, where was this subsidy during our cry in June? We are mature enough. This is pure politics. Someone has pocketed billions of money, and of course this is on assertion at macro, but also saying President Uhuru Kenyatta could have done this before the price escalated to 230. I also wonder whether Russia-Ukraine war has gone for a 1-month break. So these are just some of your sentiments. We will be back in a moment, and of course we'll be tackling more issues. Stay with us. The hashtag to use is NTVM Live.
The Communications Authority of Kenya, CA, regulates the broadcasting industry, promoting development of local content and ensuring responsible use of broadcasting platforms for national good. The Communications Authority of Kenya, opening your world.
At the first sign of pain, you need a solution that you can trust. Try Panadol Advance. With Panadol's Optizode formula, the tablet absorbs quickly and starts providing fast and effective pain relief you can trust. Try Panadol Advance.
The road to the 2022 general elections would be nothing without the electorate, hungry for change and banking on development.
Hao pia watusaidie wanasiasa kuuza ile mali tumetengeza hapa.
So what does this election mean to a mama mboga still harvesting the wound of the 2007 post-election violence?
Nyumba yangu ilichomwa nikipata mtoto.
The perennial drought has cast a dry spell in the lives of many livestock traders here in Kajiado County.
Waache kusema tu kwa mdomo watatusaidia, lakini wakati wanapata serikali hakuna ile kitu wanatenga kupatia wafugaji.
Mtu yote akikwambia ule mtu ana support, haitaki ukasirike.
Decision Voices with me, Gena Kirori, on NTV at 9 p.m.
If you know, you know. Tangu tuingie kwa mchezo si ndo heartbeat. Nairobi City tunairan kama athlete. Kwambulu luku taking over. Who's taking over? What do you expect? Bado na kill, bado na let a disaster.
Please believe it.
Tuko relevant nani daily man. Wewe for 2 weeks kagideri man.
They say that the aim of a constitutional democracy is to safeguard the rights of the minority while avoiding the tyranny of the majority.
Flag bearer wetu ni
that in politics, nothing happens by accident.
Nani alisaidia Uhuru Kenyatta 2013 akawa rais?
Opinion is the medium between knowledge and ignorance.
Raila anaweza kwa projects.
That's where we as a fourth estate come in to separate the wheat from the chaff, fact from fiction. Dissecting for you the biggest political and governance issues in the Republic in the way only we can. Keeping tabs on the pulse of the nation.
Front and Center, Thursday nights on NTV.
Life is for the living. Make sure you live it well. Life is for the living and making sure that those who we love will be well taken care of.
All right, thank you for staying with us. This is AM Live. Let's just get to what we anticipate later this afternoon. And of course, that's the deputy presidential candidates debate that will be happening at the Catholic University of Eastern Africa. And of course, it will be beamed live on NTV and across other media stations, on TV stations and online as well. So the debate will be two-tiered, where the first-tier debate will feature deputy presidential running mates whose popularity in the recent opinion polls stand below 5%. And of course, the second tier will feature those candidates whose popularity rating in the last 3 opinion polls was above 5%. So of course, the second debate will certainly feature Azimio's Martha Karua and Kenya Kwanza's Rigathi Gachagua. And just a glimpse of perhaps one of the most recent opinion polls by TIFA. It talks about, and this is on the choice of running mates of the two coalitions, Martha Karua and Rigathi Gachagua for deputy president, they say has not had a significant impact for either of the candidates. I'll begin with you, Dismas.
Absolutely. You know, first of all, the way these debates have been structured, that you have 2 levels, people with less than 5%, and then another group that is more than 5%.
Right.
In my view, if you've got less than 5%, there is no reason you shouldn't be participating in these debates, because essentially you're wasting Kenya. I mean, if you've got less than 5%, then probability of you winning is almost 0.
And what is the probability that Kenyans are not aware of the kind of, agenda that you have for them, and this would be perhaps the best platform, perhaps even increase that rating?
The fact that elections in Kenya are held every 5 years. Anybody who wants to run for office knows there are elections that are held every 5 years. So if Kenyans don't know anything about your agenda, about your policies, you have nobody but yourself to blame. The fact that it's divided into 2 levels, it means that the entire nation has already taken a position that this one level is just a curtain raiser. They're going to warm the seats as we wait for Gachagua and Karua to come in. Believe me, that is the position.
You feel like this is sort of an unfair treatment?
It's unfair because they've already been classified. these are certain level, less than 5%. You know, when you do a pie chart, that is what appears in others. You put it in a different color, then you pull it out for clarity of understanding. So in my view, I think this is a complete waste of time for the others. But now for the main two candidates, tonight, Gachagua and Karua, we look at them and find out, are they ready to become presidents? Is Martha Karua ready to become president of Kenya? Is Gachagua ready to become president of Kenya? And because we're in the era of toxic politics, there are people who have been saying that there is a Martha Karua effect, that from the time she joined this ticket, she's turned Mount Kenya upside down, and people are very excited all of a sudden. But if you reflect, you ask yourself, that if a President Kenyatta has not been able to turn around Mount Kenya, how can Martha Karua do that? What kind of skills or social capital or political capital does Martha Karua possess that gives her the opportunity to turn around Mount Kenya in favor of Raila Odinga? Given a record, you know, she ran for office. Her last race she lost as I mean, she wanted to be governor, she lost, although we said earlier on, she went all the way to the East African Court of Justice. But ask ourselves, what does Karua bring to the table? Raila Odinga indicated that if he becomes the president, Martha Karua will be the minister for, cabinet secretary for justice and constitutional affairs. But it's important to know that under the current constitution, a deputy president cannot have that substantive position. You're a deputy president, you're a deputy president. Maybe she can be given responsibilities around that through an executive order. And then for Gachagua, when Gachagua was named as a running mate, what Ruto indicated is that I want you to be in charge of the county economic forum. So it means that for Ruto, right from the word go, he wants the deputy to focus on economics. And for Raila Odinga, he wants the deputy to focus straight on issues of justice, constitutional affairs, governance. And in my view, if Raila Odinga becomes the president, and then Martha Karua is treated with decorum, that Martha Karua and Raila Odinga have got a very solid relationship, not like the one which exists between President Kenyatta and his deputy. Then Martha Karua will drive this agenda of corruption. And you know, corruption is something that people in Kenya don't take seriously. The president himself has admitted 2 billion shillings every day. The president of the Republic of Kenya has admitted 2 billion shillings every day. At the end of the year, it comes to 720 billion. Wow. 720 billion. Now you wonder, the president of the Republic of Kenya, the head of state and the head of Jubilee, has admitted we lose 720 billion per annum, and he's done nothing about it.
So that suddenly looks bad for a president to make such an admission by saying this is happening under my watch. But hopefully that if you choose this person or you choose these candidates, they're the ones who will be responsible for tackling this issue.
Yes, Raila Odinga has indicated that when he was in government.
But then again, he's also the patron of this team.
Yes, now you're opening the Pandora's box. Now Raila Odinga has served in government as a prime minister, and he says he knows the loopholes. He knows how these resources get lost. So one wonders, over the last 5 years he's been in the handshake, how come he has not told President Kenyatta that this is the path where these resources get lost? But at this campaign, we've been told the principal responsibility for Martha Karua would be to kill corruption. So I'm hoping that tonight she'll actually face Kenya and say, this is how I'm going to kill corruption. That my principal, Mr. Raila Odinga, has told me these are the mwanyas, and these are how I'm going to close the loopholes. But it becomes very complicated, as you've indicated, that the chairman of Azimio Council is President Kenyatta. And I'm not sure, and you know, these are very dicey, because Martha Karua indicated that all the coalitions have got impurities. So now, I don't know whether there's full disclosure over the people who are funding Raila Odinga, and there's full disclosure for the people who are funding Ruto. I think they need to print out the names. We need to know when Martha Karua jumps into a chopper and goes to Mombasa and goes to Kwale to meet Agama people, who is actually footing that bill. In my view, the organizers tonight need to ask those two people that, can you give us a list of the people who are financing your campaign, so that we begin to know the interest. And also for Gachagua, Gachagua needs to clean his image, because, you know, he's been a victim of toxic politics. every article talks about a DO. Martha Karua was a magistrate. Nobody discussed about a magistrate, but he's said to be brutal. That during the Moi administration as a DO, he engaged in a few things that which are unacceptable. But what sets him apart is the minimum guaranteed returns, because that's what he's been talking about for the people of Mount Kenya. But he must also say that is these minimum guaranteed returns going only to affect people in Mount Kenya? What if you come from a place that doesn't enjoy these minimum guaranteed returns, that doesn't need it? So he also needs to address those two issues. But for me, at the end of the day, after they do their presentations, they need to give Kenyans confidence that in the unlikely event of anything happen, that they'll slide into the position of leadership in Kenya, and they'll not make anybody nervous. Because, you know, there are people who look at Gachagua and he comes out as a bully, somebody who's
sort of abrasive,
somebody who can easily morph into a dictator. So he needs to clear that.
All right. Madam Melachi, your reaction to perhaps, you talked about what you would be looking forward to when the four candidates will be appearing, but specifically the two candidates in the second tier of the debate. But, you know, what we know is the issue of graft has also come out very prominently when it comes to dominating this particular debate. What will be watching out for?
First of all, the thing we would want to watch as Kenyans is a debate that does not go personal. Yes, I'm hoping they will focus very objectively on the issues that are affecting Kenya, the economic issues that are really affecting Kenya, and how you will ensure you are going to deal with corruption so that you're able to pay the debt that we always talk about, but also how will you ensure that Kenyans can enjoy your leadership across board, regardless of whether they voted for you or they did not vote for you. How are you going to ensure that as a country we are moving in peace? Because everyone, even the businessmen, every investor right now is looking at Kenya and saying, we want to see a country that moves to its next transition, but in a very peaceful way. How are we going to ensure that this will be an office that will respect that you're in the presidency, that you are going to show Kenyans you are able to tolerate each other, and yes, you can disagree, but you don't need to disagree on TV or to Kenyans or shout or do all those things. Have to talk, I mean, they have to prove to us 100%. How are you going to tell us Kenyans that you're not coming into government again to start business, to start entrepreneurs, you know? Because this is what has killed this Jubilee government. This is what has brought them to the conflict they have today, because of business, because they lost focus and they decided each of them will do business in government and make their money. But this is where we are. We will hate to have another government that does that. But in terms of now managing, and I'll tell Didmas, I think to give a portfolio, doesn't matter whether it's for justice or whatever, but I think it's important. I think it tones down the conflict that we have seen. It gives you a portfolio to do, and it's not just for the deputy president, but I'm hoping also the governors, we are going to give their deputy governors a portfolio to manage, so that you don't get into a competition.
A portfolio that isn't anywhere specified within the Constitution.
Government, you don't need, you remember, government creates policies, and the Constitution allows you to create different departments, different structures, as long as they are within your government. And so there's nothing wrong. The only thing you can't create is a 25th ministry. You can't do that. But you can decide within what the Constitution has given you to create one of the CSs to be a CS of justice. And you can decide you're not employing another one, but your deputy or whoever can run that ministry. So I don't think there's anything wrong. I mean, I think Kenyans did not cast the Constitution to say that we have decided. They gave us principles. You work within those principles.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. Dr. Ojwang.
Yeah, I think it will be an interesting debate. Senior Martha Karua is probably facing the most difficult task she has ever done in life. how you are going to prosecute the government that is endorsing you and giving you the ticket. Like you said, President Uhuru is the chair of Azimio, and President Uhuru have outrightly come out to say, I'm the one who have scouted for this talent in fighting corruption. Given my record in fighting corruption, I have spotted Martha Karua talent, and I have a ear to fight corruption. So I wish her the best because I respect her a lot, but it's a very difficult work to do, especially to bite the hand, kind of, as they will say. I also think that, of course, you know that Martha Karua Senior Counsel's role is to help Azimio path to victory through Mount Kenya. Another, as Mokua was saying, another acumen task, because handshake was to be the barter trade. We shake hands, you give me Mount Kenya, and boy, did that backfire. So to what extent is she able to bring in Mount Kenya votes and make the dwindling fortune actually sell? And therefore, I hope they will talk about their different clear path to victory. Martha Karua's record is known. She has done great things for this country. As anybody else, she has also failed in a few. Gashagua's record is less known. Even myself, who have met him, I will find and think more of Martha than him, to be honest. Because of the legal fraternity, and because I come from a region that like activists. But you see, Mount Kenya, it is not Matiba who became the president, it's Kibaki. Matiba was the activist, the good guy, and was very famous for us in Luoland, for the Western people, because we like those kind of people. But Mount Kenya, fortunately or unfortunately, like economists. So they came with Kibaki. It is Nani who was jailed, but it is President Kenyatta who became the president. So that is why we are not seeing much. You had a question.
But let me bring in some numbers here. And I know the criticism that comes with the opinion polls that we've seen in the recent days. But the latest recent opinion poll by TIFA talks about satisfaction of the choice of running mates of either side of the political divide. 90% of those supporting Raila Odinga said they were very satisfied with that choice, while 67% of Ruto's supporters said they're satisfied with the selection of, that is, Rigathi Gachagua. And of course, they're talking about, let me get more numbers here. So, and this is on a general view. So, the ticket between Raila Odinga and Martha Karua enjoying at least a 42% support across the country.
42%.
And then you have the other team, 39%.
39%. 42 and 39%. You know, there's
20 days to the election.
Right. There's a book I read called Damn Lies and Statistics. Of course, as we sing in Adventist Church, prone to wonder, Lord, I feel it. That there is nothing there. In fact, I got what the TIFA was going to do 2 weeks before they did it. I gave some bloggers and they tweeted about it, and they came with the exact numbers. And we know what they will bring next. So it is a desperate measure. I can tell you for sure that nobody, it's the same polls that ODM believed to give some tickets to their candidates who are now suffering. They remember they didn't do nomination, so they said we have these polls that we have conducted, and you are ahead. But now all those candidates are facing serious headwind. So nobody's worried about the polls, nobody's worried about whatever. But the idea is that my former Prime Minister did not get what handshake promised, which was Mount Kenya. And that is unfortunate. And whether now Martha Karua can deliver that Mount Kenya is the issue. But again, I was just saying that as a lawyer, as people from our region, we get excited with the reforms, with the activism, with citing of the Constitution. It's beautiful.
But so are you saying the opinion polls are not a true reflection of what is on the ground?
Far from it, I can tell you for sure. And each party, in fact, what media could do, if you could do it, and
we have conducted opinion polls, of course, as well.
Yeah. I don't want to get
by
into...
contracting outside opinion pollsters.
Well, you know very well that in Kenya at this point, if you met somebody in the street and ask him, are you partisan? Then you are asking a question that does not make sense. We are all partisan at this point. Whether we are in the TV set, whether we are nation media, whether we are KTN, and that is obvious. People use their channel, people use the government resources to perpetuate their interests. Those polls, and that is why it reminded me of my book, Damn Lies and Statistics, that there is nothing far off. In fact, what these political parties should do, let Azimio bring us their poll. They are doing polls every week, serious polls, and they know where they are. Kenya Kwanza are doing serious polls, up to 50,000 participants, up to polling stations. If they could bring us their polls, then we can see the diet they eat every day. But this TIFA and whatever are lullaby here, and nobody is interested in it.
You know, Dr. Jong here has made some statements, and he has assaulted logic with a lot of success. It does not mean that if you've taken a position that you are supporting, say, Professor Wajakoya or Azimio or Kenya Kwanza, that now you abandon objective thinking. Most of us here are concerned with our national and public interest, and everybody wants Kenya to have solid leaders. Because we are going to elect 1,930 officers, and Madam Beatrice, I wish you well, so that they go to the National Assembly, Senate, governors, and State House to come up with the decisions and the policies that are going to affect our lives for the next 5 years or 10 years. So we have got an obligation to be honest with ourselves and honest to the nation. So one may have taken a particular position, but we still remain honest. And which is why I want to thank the judiciary for being very fast in clearing some of these issues, so that we get candidates who respect Chapter 6 coming up. Actually, if wishes were horses, this matter should have been settled a long time ago, so that we have a clean slate of candidates. Now, you know, there are matters which have delayed. Like, for instance, the issue of Kigame was sorted out yesterday. There's a gentleman called Mr. Jimmy Wanjigi. His issue has not been sorted out. So we'd like that people who respect Chapter 6, people who are visionary, all of them are given an opportunity to go to the ballot, so that Kenyans have got a choice. You know, it doesn't matter whether, like Dr. Ojwang, you come from Western Kenya and you love activists. If these activists do not change your socio-economic lifestyle, it doesn't matter if you come from Gatundu or from Othaya and you love economists, and these economists do not change your socio-economic lifestyle. Because believe me, at the end of the day, when you elect these 1,930 persons, they're going to be paid from our taxes for the next 5 years, for the next 10 years. If they occupy constitutional offices, or rather, if it's maybe a president or a governor, we'll take care of them for the rest of their lives. You may have noticed a few days ago that governors and deputy governors want to give themselves ridiculous send-off packages. Ridiculous send-off packages. So, you elect these people into office, they make bad laws, they come up with bad policies, they compromise your life, they assault your dignity, and then you reward them with resources for the entire of their life. That is what we must ask ourselves, that are we still suffering from this Stockholm syndrome? When are we going to redeem ourselves? So I'd like to advise Dr. Juang, and I have no capacity to advise him on issues of law,
you do.
But he must run away from this thing about an activist or an economist and vote in somebody because they have leadership capacity, because they have competence and capacity. These are the things that are, this guy is from my village, that we used to go to the same river, we attended the same high school. It doesn't work.
So we start changing that particular narrative.
Yes.
Yes. Beatrice, and as you make your closing remark as well, just winding up on this particular debate and moving forward on the state of the poor, what should Kenyans be aiming for?
I think the most important thing is to ask yourself, what type of a leader would you want to see? And I've said, a leader is not just this politician, and I'm hoping senior here and everyone, if you're in an office, you're the one to transform that office. It's not just the politician, because the politician will come and give you the law. Then you move with the law now to implement it. You have to understand that if you want to see a good government, and I have said this many times, it's the person in that office that changes that institution. It's not about the institution or they have law. You can have very good laws, which we have today in our country. But look at where we are. As leaders, we have used the same law to make sure people are suffering instead of benefiting and even enjoying the same laws that they think, oh, this is a very progressive constitution. If you tell Kenyans that, they will tell you, we are better off with the old constitution now. The only thing that makes them now feel this is a progressive constitution is when they look at devolution. But then the question now would be, who are our next governors coming in? After 10 years, have we really analyzed and looked at the challenges we faced in those 10 years? Have we agreed that counties are unique and that this blanket of where you just take counties to be the same should stop, and we start looking at counties per their uniqueness, their strength and their weaknesses. And so for the leaders who are coming in, for Kenyans who are looking at leaders, if you are looking at leaders who know politics, who can speak so well, then we are back in the same challenge. You'd rather even get the one who does not understand that politics, but is able to ask himself, I am supposed to enter this office and transform what I have said, implement. Those are the leaders who will help this country.
All right. Very quickly, Dr.
You know, somebody have accused lawyers of being more interested in how the cake is divided than how to create it. And I think that is where I was coming with the idea of this is the law, this is the change. We care more about this is how to divide the cake fairly. But sometimes we don't get to the kitchen, and that is what makes Gachagua stands out, that he might not be very articulate on how to divide the cake, but he's very articulate on how to bake it. But you see, because the same medicine that killed the patient cannot, whether it's administered by Martha, whether we worked with Martha on BBI Senior Council because we believe it was the wrong thing. Whether she now administers the same medicine, it is still the bad medicine that kills the patient. In my view and in my closing remark, this country, we have discussed here, and like you, we wish you best, because you know, your university is very proud of you. You have clear record of education. You came to school. You did your masters. We are in two different wheelbarrows in this country. And one wheelbarrow is pushing us to disaster, and another wheelbarrow is taking us to freedom.
All right, Dr.
So
Ojong's assessment of the situation. Yes,
Give me a minute.
I don't think
we actually do not have a minute.
Yeah, okay, 30 seconds. You know, I've listened to Beatrice here, and she reminds me of the conversations we've been watching in Britain over people who want to become prime ministers. And in my view, if we get Beatrice to go to the National Assembly and many more like that, who are loyal to our national and public interest, we'll start making progress.
All right.
Thanks for
Thank
the
you so much. This was Moko, political risk analyst, Honorable Beatrice Alachi, of course, vying for the Dagoretti North seat, also former Nairobi County Speaker, as well as Dr. Duncan Ojwang, lawyer and governance expert. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us this morning for this conversation. And, you know, it's never ending, but let's continue having it on our social media platforms at NTV Kenya. The hashtag is MLive. And